Welcome participants in this new session, and in the last session we were discussing about emotions, and we also discussed about various kind of emotions, and then we started discussing about different theories of emotions. So, the different emotional theories are already it was shared with you. Now, let us start with the very first theory given by James-Lange, and which is popularly known as James-Lange theory, and this theory was given in 19th century, and the James-Lange theory of emotion is one of the earliest emotional theories, and according to this theory the reactions of nervous system could include a fast heartbeat, tensed muscles, sweating and more. According to this theory, the physiological responses come before the emotional behavior. The basic emphasis of James-Lange theory is the physiological responses will come first, and then the emotional behavior will precipitate out. When we were talking about the process of emotions, in that we understood that there are three component of process of emotions. The first one is subjective experience, second physiological response, and then the behavioral part. So, according to James-Lange, it is physiological response which will happen first with the organism or individual, and then that physiological reaction will push the organism towards emotional behavior or typical behavior. This can be understood with the help of an example. The father and daughter are traveling, and during the traveling someone is teasing or someone is involved in the eve teasing with that girl. Then this stimulus in the environment will be experienced by the father, and as a result of that experience certain physiological changes, physiological patterns will start happening with the father, and then the father will become irritated, and his blood will running with fast speed, eyes will become red, face will become red, and the person will become action oriented. So, according to James-Lange, it is the physiological response which will result into the emotional behavior. The next theory is the facial feedback theory, and according to this theory, emotions suggest that facial expressions are crucial to experiencing emotions. According to this theory, each and every emotion has a typical kind of facial pattern, and this facial pattern will result into the emotional process, and this theory was given by is as a result of understanding of Charles Darwin's and William James, and they created certain kind of emotional facial patterns, and this theory holds that emotions are directly tied to the physical changes in the facial muscles. So, there will be certain changes in the facial muscles. Why facial muscles? Because the face is not something static part. Face involves the changes, and those changes comes as a result of the pattern of working of facial muscles, and these patterns are resultant of emotions. So, according to this theory, whenever there will be change among the facial muscles, the facial pattern will change, and that will result into the emotions. So, this is according to the facial feedback theory, and then next one is Cannon-Bard theory, which was developed by Walter Kanner in 1920s, and this theory of emotion was developed to refute of James-Lange theory. It is a kind of refusal to the James-Lange, and the Kanner told that no, it is not the physiological response. This theory advocates that bodily changes and emotions occur simultaneously instead of one right after the other. So, the Cannon-Bard theory explains that no, it is not the response which will come first and then the emotional behavior. Both of these will happen simultaneously. As a result of subjective experience, there will be physiological responses, and parallelly the emotional behavioral pattern will happen. So, this is third Cannon-Bard, and the last theory is cognitive appraisal theory, and this theory was given by Richard, and the theory is thinking must occur before experiencing emotions. According to this theory, it is not only the experience, there should be thinking involved in that. Or we can understand, according to cognitive theory, first there will be stimulus in the environment, then there will be subjective experience, and after subjective experience the thinking thought process or cognitive process will go, and that cognitive process will simultaneously lead to the emotional patterns. So, this is cognitive appraisal theory. Now, why we should understand about emotions and what are benefit of understanding the emotions? And the benefits are, there are certain emotions which drives the people, emotions of excitement, pleasure. Excitement will be there in the anger as well as in place of pleasure there will it would be a kind of unpleasant. So, there is need to understand what kind of impact on individual and others will be there as a result of emotions. So, these benefits can better be understood by the argument of Ekman's that emotions are fundamentally constructive. They are influenced by what is good for our species overall. So, this is also one factor which helps to understand the benefit of emotions. And now, we have nearly taken up the different concepts and terms involved in the emotional understanding, and if we have understood the emotional patterns, then what is impact of emotions? And impact of emotions means how emotions can affect the working of individual, and as a result of that what impact it can have on the organizational working. To understand that, people can be intelligent in observing, experiencing and expressing the emotions, and this is known as emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is how the emotions are perceived, controlled and evaluated. Evaluated in the sense how emotions can be observed, experienced and then expressed in such a way, so that it has become helpful in adjustment with the environment. It has become helpful for the well-being and betterment of the individual or organism. That is emotional intelligence. In emotional intelligence, the emotions are experienced and expressed in such a way, so that it can support the individual to best adjust with the environment. So, what are component of emotional intelligence and why we should talk about emotional intelligence in organizational behavior? And when we started describing, understanding about emotions, we understood that how emotions can have impact on behavior. And now, we are discussing about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence means there are positive and negative patterns of emotions, and positive and negative patterns of emotions have impact on the behavior of individual. So, if we can understand the emotions and we can control the emotions, we can have positive and negative impact on the working of individual and working on the teams and the organization. And to have that control, there is need to understand the components of emotional intelligence, and the component, the very first component is appraising and experiencing emotions in the self and others. The very first, if some individual want to understand the complete gamut of emotional behavior, then there is need to appraise, evaluate, assess and express emotions in the self and others. How I am experiencing and expressing the emotions, that is very first component, and it is recognizing or expressing verbal or non-verbal cues about emotions. Second is regulating emotion in the self and others. First is experience and expressing. Second is regulating them, controlling them. And third one is using emotions in adaptive ways. I told that emotions have impact on behavior. If impact is negative, it will have negative impact on working of the organization. If emotion has positive impact, it will have positive impact on organizational working. So, the person who is emotionally intelligent will very first appraise, evaluate and express the emotions self and others. Self means he will be cautious about it and he will take care that what kind of emotions should be expressed in a particular situation, so that it can be positive and constructive for the organizational development. Second is regulating. If there is need to control, regulate, change or modify the emotions for effective, productive and efficient working of the organization, then that factor should be practiced. And the third one is using emotions in adaptive ways. Which particular emotions are supportive, adaptive to them, learning them, observing them, practicing them. So, these are the component of emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence and organizational behavior, already we have understood some part, and emotional intelligence can segregate what different emotions are positive, what different emotions are negative, and when to practice the positive, what different situations where typical type of emotions should be practiced, so that the productivity of organization can be enhanced. So, this is emotional intelligence which is necessary. And now, the emotional intelligence can be categorized into 4 part theory. There is one theory which is 4 part theory, or there are different theories. The first one is the 4 part theory, and according to this theory, there are different part in that, and those parts are emotional perception, how emotion has been perceived, means what is happening in the environment, how stimulus has been taken, and then how stimulus has been interpreted. A boy was in a relationship with a girl and there was something problem with the girl. Now, how that reaction will be taken, how it would be perceived by the boy. Now, there is breakup, and that boy is not more associated. Now, this girl is associated with some other boy, and something is happening with that girl, then the perception of boy will change. So, perception is a factor which will have impact on the emotion. So, among 4 parts, the very first is emotion, how the emotion has been perceived, and then next is emotion facilitation of thought, what kind of thinking is generated as a result of experience, perception, interpretation, and then what kind of thoughts are coming as a result of that. That is also. Then the next component in that is the emotion understanding as a result of experience, perception, and the thinking process. Now, how the emotion has been understood, and that understanding will help in the next component, that is emotional regulation, the emotion regulation. If individual has clearly understood that, then there will be emotional regulation. So, this is completion of the emotional intelligence factors. Now, let us try to understand why there is need of understanding the emotional intelligence in organizational working. An organization is combination of various teams, and various teams have their different interests, and as a result of those interests, if interests are addressed, not addressed, interests are hampered, then different stimulus will generate in the organizational working, and these organizational stimulus will give opportunity to people to experience them subjectively, perceive them in their mindsets, and these will have impact on the behavior of people. So, the organizational environment, organizational climatic conditions, organizational setup, organizational design, organizational team formation, all these factors should be created in such a way, so that people can practice the emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence means how intelligently emotions are being observed in the organization, and this is not effort of individuals only. Organization, its leadership, its management can play a significant role to create that kind of environment which is giving opportunity for the generation of positive kind of emotions which are supportive to the accomplishment of organizational work and goal, and negative kind of emotional patterns which will have impact on the working of the organization. So, after identification of that, then people can be identified, and if there is need to rework on their emotional patterns, then the certain kind of trainings can be given. So, this is conclusion of emotional intelligence and how it is necessary to understand it in the organizational behavior. Now, we will talk about one more topic, the next topic, and that topic is group formation, group dynamism, and group thinking. And what is need, why we should talk about group in organizational behavior, and number of time we have shared that organization is a social group, it is a social entity. Organization as a whole is a bigger group, departments are smaller group, among the departments there are smaller teams, and among the teams there are smaller sub teams, and in the sub teams there are individuals. So, organization is a group. So, there is need to understand what are these groups, how these groups form, and what kind of dynamism is there in the groups, and how people think among groups. There is need to understand all that. Reason being, the groups, group thinking, group decision making and group dynamism have impact on the working of organization, and this impact on the working of organization has impact on the productivity, effectiveness and efficiency. And the goal of organization is to attain maximum productivity, maximum effectiveness and efficiency. This is directly related. So, let us start discussing one by one all the different concepts, and starting with the group. Let us try to understand what is group. And group is it is when two or more than two people joining together for some accomplishment of a goal by involving the psychological awareness of each other and having perception about themselves in orientation with the accomplishment of organizational goal. So, group is a team of two or more than two people which are joining together to accomplish a common goal, and for the accomplishment of that common goal, these people understand each other, perceive each other, and they are psychologically aware about each other. So, this is group. Now, as I told you that groups can be very smaller to the very large group. You see the group of Coca-Cola people, this company has got its business among hundreds of countries, and this business is accomplished by a very large group of people. They are working together for a common goal, and yes, of course, they have their psychological awareness and their perceptive understanding about that. So, organization is a group. Now, let us understand the group dynamics. Let us first understand the dynamics. Dynamics is anything which is resulting into the change, and dynamics always results as a reason of existence of different kind of forces. Forces will create the movement, the change, and this change is dynamics. And what is group dynamics? Group is consist of number of people, and each and every person has personal interest, personal way of behavior, personal style, and a different personality and different psychological, cognitive, emotional, physiological and biological patterns. And all these differences will result in different pattern of behaviors and interests, and these different patterns of behavior and interests will motivate the person to address them, and these patterns will be addressed by the different set of activities. And if these set of activities are not synchronized and aligned with the organizational need of working, then there will be problem. So, there is need to match and map it. So, group dynamics is the different people working in an organization, their interest and their equations will create pull and push, and these pull and push will become the group dynamics. It can be understood with the help of an example. There might be different teams in an organization, the marketing team, the production team, the human resource management team, the finance team, and R&D team. Different teams can be there in the organization. All these teams have their different interests, and accordingly, as a result of these interests, the equations among people will develop, and these equations will pull and push the people, and this pulling and pushing is ultimately dynamism of the group. Now, to understand the group, there are certain features, characteristics of group. Very first one is there should be minimum 2 or more than 2 persons. Second characteristic of a group or feature of the group is group members have reciprocal influence. What I am doing to others, others will reciprocate to. If I am doing good to others, others will be good towards me. If I am doing something bad to others, others will have bad towards me. So, it has influence, reciprocal influence. Third characteristic or feature of group is people develop mutual perceptions and emotions. When people work in the group, it is not the individual perception only, they will have mutual perception also. What interpretation I have taken from a stimulation, what interpretation others have taken, then as a whole what aggregate perception has been made, and yes, as a consequence of this what kind of emotions have generated, that will result into the group. So, this is also one of the characteristic, and besides that every group will have a formal leader and informal leader also, and each group will have a specific role and influences expectations. So, these are some of the characteristics, and with all this we will conclude this session. Thanks for the participation. In the next session we will join again with the new topic, rather we will continue this topic itself, because we could not complete this one. So, we will try to complete this topic in the next session. So, with the expectation that you might have enjoyed the learning. So, thank you very much.